What is it?
Well, it's called Randomizer, and it's fitted to the guidance systems and operates under a very complex scientific principle called potluck. Now, no one knows where we're going. Not even the Black Guardian.
Not even us.
Hello and welcome to episode 32, we think, we had to double check, of the Randomizer podcast. I am Tim.
I'm Chaz.
And I'm Gareth.
Hello, Gareth. Welcome back for a return appearance. Delightful to have you with us. We invited you along after we recorded an episode of Very British Features with you on the flip side of Dominic Hyde, and look forward to hearing that. Yeah,
It was great fun. It was a pleasure to show you something that you enjoyed.
yeah,
Absolutely. God, did you say episode 32?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That just sort of... It's not really related to the number 32, but have you ever sort of just thought about life and the way it sort of moves on, and eventually you're staring into a sort of tunnel of your own making, of blackness and despair, and you stare back and all you can see is a reflection of yourself, and then you wonder, is it all worth it? Am I here for a reason? Am I making a contribution to this life? And then you realise that all you've got in your life is a fucking podcast. Just a thought.
Not related to 32, but you're definitely having an episode.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just a bit.
Well, welcome along if you haven't hung up the podcast and filmed the Samaritans instead. Thanks for that, Chaz. Are they all going to be existential angst from here on in?
I think at the moment it might be.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, you're off on holiday. You should be happy.
Yeah, I am. I'm off to Australia in a few days or so, and very much looking forward to it. Although, you know, I'm not keen on sun or travel or being out of my comfort zone, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to a postcard or a digital equivalent.
Or, maybe a
news story in the
news
section.
story. Yeah. Couldn't get that out there.
Gareth, what have you been up to?
I've been keeping busy. I recently finished my degree apprenticeship.
Hey.
So it's such a relief to... Those 4 years now have paid off. And now I'm putting time into my own podcast, Very British Futures. We've recorded 2 episodes so far, including the one featuring yourselves.
Brilliant.
And generally, I thought I'd have loads of time once the degree was over, and I don't. I quickly managed to fill it with about 10 other projects.
It's funny how things like that happen, isn't it? You know, you think, right, once this is over, I'll have plenty of time but you never have. Oh, well, congratulations, Gareth. Have you had the results as of yet?
I have, yes. So it was a first.
Fancy pants.
I had my graduation ceremony, although because of lingering COVID, I couldn't shake hands with Lord Peter Mandelson. I just had to nod
Thank
at
heavens
him.
for small mercies.
If you get some asbestos gloves and John Constantine to sort of do a few sort of spells just to keep him at bay, that would have been fine.
At my graduation from college in Cardiff, they were giving honorary degrees to Griff Rhys-Jones and Ruth Maddock, and they read out their biographies. They did Griff, and that was nice. And then they read out Ruth Maddock's biography, and at the moment they mentioned Heidi High, the entire student body, without prompting, yelled back "Hody Ho," which livened up a very dull ceremony.
Similar thing happened at a convention once when I was at, and JNT was there, and he was talking about the body of his work, and he happened to work on Crackerjack, and funny enough, I was the only one that shouted it out, but it was quite fun, because every time he'd done it after that, the entire audience did it. So.
Oh no. Brilliant. Trendsetter as ever. Well, welcome along. This time we're going to do a little bit of a special episode. We're going to pay tribute to the late, great Bernard Cribbins, who sadly died very recently. But Chaz won't let me call it a tribute episode, so...
I absolutely refuse, and I think Bernard would back me up on this one.
Yeah, all right. Well, the risk of causing any Cribbins spinning, I shall avoid that joke again. But besides that, spoilers for every episode of Doctor Who, up to and including Legend of the Sea Devils, and spoilers for, guess why, the Wombles, Faulty Towers, and the Daleks' invasion of Earth 2150 AD.
Oh dear.
So talking of, I guess I knew Bernard mostly from my childhood in the Dalek film as Tom Campbell, the policeman who stumbles into the TARDIS, and I just love that film. We watched it again ahead of this episode, and you'd been to the cinema to see it, as you never let me hear the last of. Gareth, for us it was always a kind of Saturday afternoon kind of TV favourite, and did you grow up with it as well? Did you see it in the cinema before?
No, I hadn't, so this is a new experience to see it on the big screen, and it looked absolutely gorgeous in all its colours.
It really did. The matte paintings were absolutely beautiful in it, and it just popped on the screen. It really did. And it's always better seeing something with an audience, because there's bits of it you're sort of chuckling to yourself watching, but the audience experience, just where everybody's in sync and laughing at the funny bits, or it's just magical. It really is, and everybody shines in that film. Well, more or less everybody. Cribbins is he's such a good companion in it. Peter Cushing, Philip Maddock is a nice standout in it, and Roberta Tovey basically just says, why the hell did we have the real Susan? Couldn't we have just replaced her? I know that's a bit unfair, but she is very, very good.
Yeah, we sort of didn't realise what a big deal Ray Brooks had been. Oh, that's not even a pun, but that was one of his shows, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, very
Didn't mean it. I was subconscious. But, you'd said you'd seen an advert about, was it The Man with the Knack or something?
No, it was the original trailer says, Ray Brooks, the boy with the knack. And I always just think, what the fuck does that mean? And it was Davey that actually informed me. I hadn't known Ray Brooks was in a show at the time called The Knack, or a movie. So they were capitalising on that, I would imagine.
It's very good. I quite like how understated he is in his performance. In that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really love, or I loved all over again watching it on your big television, which is probably only slightly smaller than the cinema screen, but was the saucer effect at the end when it crashes. I always remember being just absolutely flabbergasted by it's coming at the screen, it's coming towards you, it's getting bigger and bigger, and you think, okay, this is like a 2D back projection or something, and at some point it's going to cut. But then it crashes into the mine tower, and I just thought it was such a good effect.
I mean, okay, I suppose you could say it looks a bit Thunderbirds in that bit, but when you consider, I mean, it can't have been a massive budget to that movie, but they really, really went all out with it, and it is a shame that one didn't do as well as the Daleks, because it's clearly the better movie.
Yeah, I was astonished to hear that. I can't think why. I mean, you were speculating maybe it's because it's quite grim in tone.
It is quite, when you actually sit and think about the tone of it, it is pretty grim. I mean, you're trying to do a children's movie about, basically half the population have died or starving or, this and that. But there's also a lot of cleverness to it. The same with the TV version. For example, when they go to find a vehicle in the TV version, they go to an auto museum, thus getting over why cars aren't sort of a bit more futuristic. So and all the clothes, because it's been a war of it's lasted long, they're all basically just wearing anything they can get, so it's a neat way of sort of doing a future setting without having to really go overboard on futuristic things. No, it's absolutely fantastic. And I forgot to mention Andrew Keir as well, who for me is just wonderful. Also, he was the best Quatermass, but fight me.
So you have a favourite moment, Gareth, or moments?
Oh, I mean, you covered quite a few. I mean, I agree that the Daleks Invasion of Earth is the better film. They've learnt a few things. Mercifully, the Daleks don't talk as slowly as they do in the first film, which is my one I love Doctor of the Daleks, but that's the one problem. Whenever two Daleks talk, it takes forever. But no, I mean, it's a real shame that, unfortunately, the novelty, it appears, had worn off for seeing them on the big screen, because it is the much smoother, better film. And seeing the Sheila Steffel in there and Eileen Ray as well.
Yeah.
Old mother, wasn't she? In Tribe of Gun?
Yeah.
I love the moment with the Robomen sort of comedy business where they're having food, and my son Max came with us to watch it at Chaz's, and we were he's been kind of slightly obsessed with that ever since, been sort of handing me dolly mixtures and saying, now wait, you got to eat them in sync with me.
Yeah, I think the other thing I really noticed, especially when you watch them back to back, is Peter Cushing's performance noticeably changes.
Yeah.
He's a lot less dotty in the second film, and it sort of makes, and you get this impression that by now he's been travelling for a while.
Yeah,
and it's kind of made him a bit more like the TV Doctor. He's a bit more driven, and he immediately says, "We must pit our wits against them and defeat them."
Yeah, absolutely.
Big Finish could do a whole season of missing Cushing adventures then, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was talk of doing a third movie at some point, which would have obviously been lovely, but I mean, we got what we got, and I think we're incredibly lucky to have got that in the first place. It's just, I mean, the whole thing is just wonderful nostalgia, as you said. Saturday afternoons are bank holidays, so I've always had the love's always been there for them, but seeing them on this big screen, as you said, wonderful, and also having such crisp, cleaned up prints. It's so beautiful, although unfortunately now you do see the strings on the saucer.
I always did before. I think they've actually maybe even improved the strings a little bit.
Could be. My eyesight's shit, as you know.
I just drew lines on your telly.
Actually, speaking of that third film, I don't know, have either of you read the article on Doctor Who's Greatest Adventure?
Yes, I skimmed it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, same here. I had skimmed, but
so I think we slightly dodged a bullet, because it was basically, he had this a monster movie about a giant crab, and when he couldn't sell it as a monster movie with a giant crab, he wrote the Doctor into it, basically.
So no Daleks necessarily.
So that really surprised me, because I think, like most fans, I'd assumed it was going to be a film version of The Chase.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was actually inspired. I think he got the rights to Guy N. Smith's crab novels.
Not the Macra Terror, by any chance.
Yeah, that's also thing. So this would have been a PG version of those infamous schlock paperbacks.
Yeah. I suppose we are lucky then that we didn't end up with that, you know. I mean, a film version of The Chase would have been, I think, quite fun actually, you know. But
I think the source material is probably at its height at Dalek Invasion as well, in terms of the original TV sort of to base it on. So yeah, maybe 2 and wanting more is the better world to live in, perhaps.
Well, I think it's always better, you know, leaving people wanting more. You know, that's you know, it's a bit disappointing, but you've always got that love for it, as it were.
That's why we keep all the best jokes out of the podcast. Anyway, so yes, love Bernard Cribbins in that, and that was how I probably knew him most in my childhood. But I guess the other childhood treat that Cribbins was an essential part of was the Wombles.
Ah, the Wombles,
We watched a couple of episodes, including the first one, and I was like, God, they set themselves a high bar in that first episode. It's all about high winds. Everything's kind of... The animation must have been really tricky.
It's fantastic animation, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for the time, it's something that could be repeated without any problem, I think. And I'm also a bit surprised that, you know, there isn't a sort of... thing to have the Wombles back again, because they could be basically like the government could use them as a sort of symbol for recycling, you know, to get kids involved, because kids are really, you know, really charged with things like that now, so it would I think it would take off.
I worry that that you wouldn't pick up your litter because you'd think, well, the Wombles.
The
need to pick it up.
Well, you could sort of say, right, if you pick up 500 cans, you may glimpse a Womble or something. Some of you get kids going hunting Wombles.
Or dumping truckloads of rubbish on Wimbledon Commons in the cold.
I was just looking for Wombles, officer.
Yes. I've actually...
this is Hampstead Heath, sir. What are you doing?
Well, I tripped and I accidentally, my trousers fell down and I stumbled into a Womble. Yeah. No, I've actually got the movie of the Wombles, and it's Bonnie Langford's first, I think it's her first movie role or TV, whatever.
That's amazing.
And it's actually not bad. I mean, it's very sort of cliched and of its time, but it's got quite a lot of songs in it. But there's a really great bit at the start, which is echoes Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, Good Omens, where you start off in the Garden of Eden and the apple core gets thrown away and there's a Womble picking it up. And then you go to Roman times and there's a Womble, picking up spearheads and stuff. And you go all through time to modern times, you get about 4 or 5 sequences where Wombles were always there from the dawn of history. And it's absolutely brilliant.
It's just starting to get sinister. Yeah. My other big memory of Wombles was related to a friend at school who just won my eternal admiration for just sitting there one day and saying, okay, so they sing the Wombles of Wimbledon Common are we? Is it the Wombles of Wimbledon Common are we? Or is it the Wombles of Wimbledon Common are we?
Common are we?
Oh.
It's a class question.
The song's great.
Well, it has the pun in the song as well, with Uncle Bulgaria being behind the times, which I didn't get for years.
And Bernard's voice is perfect for this. There's in one of the obituaries, Dr. Matthew Sweet said very appositely, he's very good at coming up with these very apposite say, is that he said that Bernard Cribbins' voice was kindly with authority.
Absolutely.
So, and the Wombles is a great example of that. In fact, actually, Matthew Sweet went on to say, when he said, "This is the home of the Wombles," there's no question. You utterly accept that.
Yeah, you were totally sucked in by it.
And it's interesting that he does voices, but they're not. It's not you wouldn't call Bernard, a man of 1,000 voices. It's very much it's his storyteller's voice adopting. Other voices, but it's still Bernard the storyteller.
Yeah,
I was struck by that watching a couple actually. That they're not kind of accents or anything particularly. It's just a kind of a sort of energy is different between each character.
And he has basically the voice, the tone welcomes you in and makes you feel safe. It's fantastic. I mean, we've got Wombles. Jackanory's another great source. I have such fond memories of just being mesmerised by Bernard Cribbins, just telling you a story. I always thought Jackanory was one of the greatest TV shows for children ever. But I mean, there's such a lengthy history of Cribbins throughout the years, be it Wombles or Jackanory or even, when he used to do his little musical things, like Right Said Fred.
I didn't realise that was him.
Yeah.
Did you not?
No, I mean, maybe it passed through my brain at one point, but wasn't a strong association.
I think a lot of people also got confused when there was a band, Right Said Fred.
Yeah, was he too sexy for his car?
I think he may well have been.
There's a lovely about one of the Comic Relief charity records. It was the one that Right Said Fred did. I think it was called Stick It Out. And Bernard Cribbins comes on at the end, and he says, "See, the trouble with Fred is he's too hasty. You can't be too hasty. Stick it out, stick it out."
Happier times, really, wasn't it?
Very
Innocent
much.
times.
Very much.
The last sort of one I wanted to talk about, you guys are welcome to chip in with others, but was his appearance in the Hotel Inspectors episode of Faulty Towers. And again, that sort of stuck out for me. It's one of my favourites of the only 12 episodes of Faulty Towers out there, but it's just full of genius moments. I mean, so many brilliant bits. Like that sort of scene, that little comic scene where they get out of trouble by Basil and Polly doing this whole shtick about, oh no, I was looking at you, but talking to her. and Cribbins is just like a baffled piggy in the middle in that scene. It's lovely. And I love, I'm not a violent man, Mr. Faulty. Yes, you are. And of course, spoons.
Yeah, that is wonderful. The start of that, more or less the start of the episode where he's trying to do something and Sybil's, on the phone. And
the machine gunning the seal laugh.
Yeah. And then, Cribbins appears and he sort of asks a few questions. Faulty going, what? He was totally baffled. Are you talking to me? And like, indeed I am, sir. Goodly day to you. And stuff. So, what the hell? Yeah. It's just, I love how, like, Faulty turns on a heel, he's patronising as hell, and then he's basically up your arse, as it were, as soon as he thinks you might be a bit higher class or something that can help him.
Can anybody name the actor who plays? I think he's called Mr. Walt, who is the other one he thinks is the inspector, but he sells outboard motors.
Yes.
I'm afraid he's got a very familiar face.
Yeah,
he has. I think he's been in a lot of 70s, 80s stuff. He's one of these people you recognise. You may not know his name, but you see him in the background of lots of other things. But he is very good. I kind of... The whole scene in the restaurant where everybody's getting the orders mixed up is just absolute genius, It's sort of,
where I've torn it up.
This bloody omelette keeps going back and forth between the three of them.
That's
wonderful.
Just so tightly written as well.
Yeah.
It's so brilliant. And Bernard Cribbins is... I mean, that whole bit of him trying to reserve the television for this televisual feast. Which
it's not possible from the moment of the commencement of its beginning.
I was actually...
You notice when he puts the phone down, he's trying to get Cribbins' finger with it, and he just slips it out. That's a little bit of business as well, twice.
I actually was having a conversation with Tim when they were talking about the television about how practical would that be, because you've got a lounge full of guests and they're all forced to watch whatever the program is. You kind of forget about the time, what TV you wouldn't expect now to not have a TV in the room, but there was only one room that there was a TV in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
apropos of nothing, it's just reminded me of might have been on No Such Thing as a Fish. They talked about somebody who was stealing TVs from hotel rooms, and he would walk in with a large bag, take the TV off the wall, and then check out. It's like, anyway, absolutely nothing to do with it apart from the hotel connection. But
and it's interesting because in many ways, this character, Mr. Hutchinson, he is really annoying. On one level, Basil is quite entitled to be annoyed by him because he is a rather, and we discover also he's not a villain, but that he's been sort of harassing
Polly.
But Polly, he's sort of been harassing Polly a bit and sort of teasing her.
It's a strong word. He's just a bit of a complainer, isn't he?
Yeah, being a bit of a creep, basically, with her. And so on one level, Basil is quite right to find him annoying. It's the way that Basil handles it that's the problem.
As always, yeah. He just, Basil always, you could say a lot of the time he is in the right, but he just handles the situation terribly.
I mean, just the one episode where, is it the wedding party where he's actually in the right and sort of handles it all right, but he just gets worse and worse. So it's the one where somebody smuggled a woman into his room and he's trying to catch him, and there's wonderful cross purposes about I'm trying to see the girl and all of that sort of stuff. But that's a whole other episode, and it's entirely bereft of Bernard Cribbins. Maybe we should make our way through Fawlty Towers and talk about that, Chaz. What do you
I
think?
think we've got enough to do at the moment.
Yeah.
But, I
Park that one for when
I
we've
have
done all
no
of Doctor Who.
objection to doing Fawlty Towers at some
It's only
point.
12. We got through, having 13 seasons of Red Dwarf, so...
Yeah. And look how long it's taken us to get through the Tomorrow People. So
Yeah.
But I mean, he was such, well, like you two, he's just been a part of my life. Bernard Cribbins, watching him as a young actor in things like Carry On England. No, not Carry On England, Carry On Jack.
that's right. Yeah.
And
Poop
the
deck.
mouse. and the Mouse on the Moon in that one, and then he's grown, we've sort of like grown up with him as this sort of.
It was such a delight to see him back in Doctor Who. I mean, 'cause he always had that association because the Dalek film, but there he was. And he was never in the classic series, was he?
No.
They did mention being or interviewing for the part of the Fourth Doctor, I think, in the extras on the Dalek film.
Yeah.
And they said that at the interview, they said, "What can you do?" And he said, "Well, I can swim."
Yeah. Like, it's... Let's go on.
So I was going to say, he's going because he said in the interview, because they said, "Well, what can you do?" He said, "Well, I used to be a paratrooper. I can do fights." And they said, "Oh no, the Doctor never fights people." And then
Coming after John Pertwee.
And then he turned in and saw Tom Baker socking people. And
no, it's brilliant, and the fact that, as I say, he was in the new series, and it's interesting because the new series is just a bone of contention among fandom. There's always something that's not liked or liked by one group, etc. There's always arguments, but out of all fandom, I think Bernard Cribbins was the one thing that everybody seemed to agree on, that he was wonderful and magical, and it is basically just like having the coolest granddad ever.
It's funny because I think we owe his second appearance, the ongoing character of Wolf, to the sad death of the actor who was pegged to play, or did play, Donna's father. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So they were going to bring that character back, but made
Howard, I think his name was Howard something. But they'd actually filmed scenes, but they weren't really usable, and then so it was a bit of a happy accident because obviously he'd appeared in the
Voyage of the Damned.
Voyage of the Damned and stuff, so it's sort of, and it sort of worked its way into the plot, which, Russell's writing again, but yeah, I mean that out of something very sad came something very magical, really.
Yeah, what a star, and a sad loss. Anybody else, anything jumping out at them about
Railway Children?
I don't think I've seen it since I was a child.
Do you know, I do love that film, and every single time I see the end of it when she's my daddy, I burst into tears. I can't help it. It's just such a beautiful ending and a beautiful little film. Cribbins is, again, he's just wonderful in the role, and you have Jenny Agutter, smashing it. I mean, you can see why she went on to become a star. But it's such a beautiful little film, and they've recently made a sequel to it.
The delay because of signal problems, children.
Yeah, probably. But I don't believe Bernard Cribbins is in it. I think, he is mentioned and so on and so forth. But again, that's just a lovely, lovely little film. He was also in The Water Babies as well,
he's the comedy henchman.
Yeah.
In that one. But yeah, it's a beautiful performance in Railway Children, because he's kind of he's mostly a comic character. He's kind of funny and endearing, but he gets this lovely scene where they try to do some charity. They're sort of trying to help his family, and he's really offended and embarrassed by it.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
It's lovely to see. I'll just throw in one of his more slightly sort of obscure a 70s TV film he did called Dangerous Davis, The Last Detective. and it gives you a view. I mean, he's very good at it, and it perhaps gives you a view that possibly, if his career had gone a little way, he could easily have been a TV detective. He plays this fairly sort of crumpled sort of. The name Dangerous Davis is an ironic one that is the other policemen have given him, because he's always the fall guy, the underdog in the situation. It's it's just a good performance, and it's interesting. He could easily have done something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that out there if you want to watch it?
I don't know. I would imagine you can get it somewhere. If not, Talking Pictures TV is a guarantee.
I was about to say it has been on Talking Pictures TV a couple of times.
Yeah, the title is was it the Dangerous David, The Last Detective, and that was picked up as a TV series later in the 2000s, and it was Peter Davison in the starring role. So
Dangerous Davison.
Yeah.
What a small world.
Yeah, very much.
Well, I think there's like 3 degrees of Doctor Who with pretty much every British actor.
You can get. Well, he was in the Army game. He did a. I don't think he was a regular, but I know he appeared in 1 or 2 episodes. So obviously he must have worked with Hartnell as well. So
Hartnell did the Army game. Pertwee did the Navy Lark. Did Troughton do something about the Air Force?
Well, he did. He did sort of a whole story that was in an airport. So,
hold that thought.
You see what I'm doing?
Oh man, it's like video 1. Move over with your links. No, I mean, before we get onto whatever story that could be, the only other thing that really we've been up to is that Chaz and I, with our friends David and Izzy, went to see the Star Trek the motion picture, or as it's been dubbed, Star Trek the slow motion picture, in the cinema. Like the Doctor Who Dalek films, it's had the 4K restoration treatment, and I am going on Saturday to see the Wrath of Khan, which I'm looking forward to immensely.
Grr.
Well, you'll be in Australia where they have cinemas, you told me. Yeah, that was fun. Gareth, you haven't had a chance to catch that one, have you?
Sadly, not at the cinema. I've always had a soft spot for the motion picture. I don't think it deserves its bad rap that it's had. Especially
certainly not the worst odd-numbered Star Trek film.
No,
yeah, definitely 5.
Not by a long chalk. I was going to say, ironically, the 2 most criticised special effects sequences are both very important to the plot. The big fly around the end, the new Enterprise, that's kind of all about Kirk's obsessions, his obsessive relationship.
Yeah,
this ship.
It's a bit of spaceship porn as well. I did like the irony that they're like, oh, it's only 4 days from Earth, we've got to hurry, but let's take the long way round to dock with the ship's going.
And then there's the big voyage across this sort of across the Verger, huge alien spaceship. You're establishing just how big. And it's a big spectacle, weird Stargatey sort of sequence.
Definitely, there's a lot to 2001, not least because Douglas Trumbull did the visual effects. Who was also, I love his film Silent Running. Which
I mean, they're definitely I think mainly because it was a TV show. They're trying to impress upon you the scale. This is a motion picture. This isn't your granddad's Star Trek, as it were. It was.
You're on record as loving slow-paced stuff, Chaz, so it should be right up your street.
Oh no, I really enjoy it.
Me too.
I mean, it is. Yes, it's a bit, maybe lacking on plot for the length of the picture, but there's just something really sort of nice about it. I mean, there's some lovely, funny little bits, when McCoy comes on. It's a bit tasteless, actually, because he's sort of complaining about the transporters not wanting to go on them, and they're forcing him into the transporters 5 minutes after somebody became a pile of goop.
Well, it only really struck me this time. I've seen it so many times, but it's like he's got a bloody point.
Yeah, he's got a very good point, sort of thing.
So don't worry, Bones, lightning won't strike twice.
Yeah, absolutely. But his relationship with Kirk is just fantastic. And
Yeah,
you see
that scene where
the
he
whole-
basically, calls Kirk out on his competitiveness with Decker is
Oh, yeah.
really great writing.
That is a really nice thing. I was going to say Kirk's little subplot is great. Spock's subplot
Yeah,
about reconnecting with his emotions is
very much.
Interesting. That transporter accident I was about to say is. I love that line. What came back didn't live long. Fortunately.
Yeah, that
It
terrified me.
sort
as a
of
child.
really does send a sort of a shiver down you, the thought of that. I think it's better as well. We don't see it, we just imply it, sort of thing.
I have a memory which is obviously not true, but of there being more visible sort of effect in the transporter beam before they disappear. But you just get very subtle glimpses, and I'm not sure if that's been remastered or if it's just my memory cheating.
It possibly has. I know that when it was released, it was rushed out, and part of the reason for this, what they've done is there was a lot of effects that weren't finished properly. So this is basically given it an opportunity to, get the full story, but have the effects finished properly so as it does look as stunning. And as we're sort of obviously more advanced now, we can basically update a lot of other things. And the print, the print is beautiful. It looks...
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, this is a director's cut well worth doing. This is especially, on the original movie, the moment when Verger arrives at Earth in the original cut, it's just this really bad process shot of a bit of the spaceship and a planet Earth in the background. It all looks blurry and murky as anything, and now we get this gorgeous reveal when the cloud parts.
Very much.
That was my favourite of the new effects. I noticed a cut, because I just watched all the Star Trek films on Paramount Plus, which I wouldn't have done if I'd known they were coming into the cinema. But so the version on Paramount Plus is quite fresh in my mind, and it doesn't have those new effects, but it did have one difference which struck me as well. And I think the film in the cinema was the worst for it. There's a moment where they've watched the destruction of their outpost on the screen. He's assembled the whole crew, and Kirk says "viewer off." And in the Paramount Plus version, he has to tell them twice. He has to say it twice before they actually turn it off, which really drove home how shocked everybody was. Yeah. And whereas he just did it once in this version. It's a tiny change, but maybe they're trying to tighten the pace. Who knows?
Yeah. God, tighten the pace. Yeah. But and the music as well. The music is gorgeous, and the sound effects as well. For like Vija, that.
It's worth looking up on YouTube. There was a sort of special, like, huge, long, weird instrument that was used for those big, weird alien noises for Vija, and there's a wonderful YouTube video of the musician playing it. And it just sounds great.
It also had the overture at the start.
Yes. I thought there was something wrong when I watched it on Paramount, because there was just a blank screen, I couldn't see the stars.
I'll be honest, I really liked that. It's not sort of, applicable to a lot of films. It would get old very quick. I know they used to do it quite often, like something like, say, Ben-Hur or something, but it's something very civilized about it, having the overture and everything. It's it's lovely. It really is.
The other thing that you pointed out, Chas, was there something oddly familiar about the relationship between Decker and Ilia?
Yeah, that's a sort of if I might be a bit off with certain things, but this film originated from Star Trek Phase 2, which was going to be this TV series, and they were sort of writing it, and it just sort of got more and more complicated, and Paramount, basically threw the money at them. But the original idea was you would have Decker as first officer and Ilia, because I don't think they were going to get Spock back at that point. They couldn't. Leonard Nimoy wouldn't do it. Hence the other Vulcan that gets transported, Goop, as it were. He was going to be your science officer, and obviously they're in the film, they're very much sort of in love, or they had been, and then they get zapped up. But when you get to Next Gen, Riker and Troy are more or less those characters, because you see it even in the first episode when they meet, and they obviously still have feelings for each other and things. So it's it's interesting little pastiches of it all. I think that the guy at the communication station, the commander, the one that was monitoring the Klingons, was actually the Vulcan that they were going to have in Phase 2, but he obviously, his contract couldn't get picked up, but they gave him that part just as a sort of sorry, as it were.
And do the Deltans appear anywhere else in Star Trek?
They probably do, but
Novels
my Star Trek knowledge isn't the greatest. I would say that if anything, they'll have appeared in Lower Decks, because they just throw everything at it.
Then get all the sex jokes in.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was reminded of was there's your little guy doing the Burley Wilk that we mentioned in a previous episode.
That's it. Yeah, the when the ship is in dock and it's going out, you've got one little astronaut sort of floating along, spinning. And if you watch all the films, anytime there's a dock scene, there's a little guy there doing a little spin. Now, I don't know Starfleet protocol, but if you're moving traffic on, I would just imagine you've got a hand coming or a hand stopping. You don't actually do a sort of little roll of victory when the ship comes out. But maybe it's like
maybe it's in
just
the wake of the starship leaving.
Yeah, or it could be just a game that the air traffic controllers have got just to lighten the mood.
Oh, it's a cute little detail. I do love it.
It's great.
I'll report back on what I make of Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, and
who's this Khan and why is he so angry?
Yeah, and if I'm alive in any way in Australia after my trip, I might go and see it, but it's very unlikely. I'll probably.
You can talk about the Wrath of Kangaroo.
Yeah. Oh, they're vicious.
There we go. Lovely stuff. Well, that was what we've been up to and our memories of Bernard Cribbins. Now it is time for your cheating memory.
A man is the sum of his memories, a Time Lord even more so.
This is where we have randomly selected an old episode of Doctor Who and gone and rewatched it and come back with fresh new insights, sometimes maybe once or twice. But we selected the Faceless Ones, which I'd watched before only as a reconstruction, but now on BritBox they have the full animated version. Although we were a bit chagrined that they seemed to just play full animation and there wasn't an option that we could see to choose to see the existing episodes, of which there are, two?
I think so, yeah, because it's a six-parter, isn't it? Yeah. So
yeah, but I have seen them, although not recently now. But the animation's great fun, and the story as a whole, I really enjoyed it. Gareth, let's kick off with you. What do you think of the Faceless Ones?
I must admit, I find it a bit of a drag of a story. I'm sorry to pour cold water over it, but it's not bad. Nothing with Troughton in is going to be completely. But I think. Usually the thing to say is it would have been better as a four-parter, but to be honest, even as a four-parter, I think I would have found this one a little heavy going. I think my main takeaway is that the aliens, that we never know their real name, the Faceless Ones, are pretty thick. But they don't know this.
With their superior intelligence,
And
the Dunning-Kruger effect writ large.
Yeah, the embarrassing thing, they are constantly going on about how amazingly intelligent they are. They are.
That's always a giveaway.
That's always. It's just like Krang and Kang in The Simpsons. They are they're puny. These puny humans.
It's almost like if the Faceless Ones came along and goes, "We're the best aliens. We got the biggest spaceships. Yeah, we're definitely the best."
Absolutely.
But in fact, they're constantly being outwitted. They're being making mistakes. And we have that bit with the leader, I think, in the last. No, it's episode 5 where he says, "Now the Doctor has come up against a brain far more powerful than he has ever met before," and he's a bit he's
a
fairly
crap.
easily outwitted. And the whole plan about we're going to hide the bodies in their cars, and
They'll never find them there.
you'll never find them in there. And you sort of think, well, even if the Doctor hadn't turned up, I think this plan was going to be rumbled
How
pretty soon.
bad was car parking at Gatwick in the 60s?
I don't think you would have cars parked there for any length of time where someone wouldn't check something.
There's something about the life force eventually draining out of them, so maybe it's the
God.
long stay car park. They've paid it up in advance.
Probably.
Yeah, you would think though hiding them somewhere without like windows would be
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, they I think there were a couple of moments which just struck out at me, which were a bit ludicrous. There's one bit where the airport commandant says, "It's not unimportant to break the law," which logically means it's important to break the law. So I don't think they meant it that way.
Yeah.
But then I think a couple of episodes later, one of the faceless ones, he seems absolutely bent on being a James Bond villain because he's absolutely teed off when Jamie won't let him complete his evil count to 5 thing. I'll count to 5. And Jamie's like, "You just better shoot me," and he goes, "No, I want to count to 5."
It's a sort of Sheldon Cooper moment.
I know, and then he does the Goldfinger laser thing with them, which is just hilarious.
I was watching that bit and I said, basically, a gun. Shoot them all in the head, it'd be done,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're not going to waste bullets. No, we're just going to build a sort of £500,000 laser.
I got this death laser lying around.
I totally agree, Gareth. I was pretty bored through quite a lot of it. The animation as well, that's a bit of a bug with me because the backgrounds, everything looked really nice, and then the animation on the characters, I mean, the running is, some people looked like they were on fucking segways the way they came into the room, and the running is absolutely terrible, and you get some moments that are just, wow, that's fantastic, and then the next moment you're like, bloody hell,
I didn't mind it so much. I loved the highlights for me were the plane going into the big spaceship.
Yeah,
but also the
is
effect
nice.
of their sort of death ray, like the first murder Polly witnesses. It's really gruesome.
I'm not saying that it's all bad. It's just it's inconsistent. You've got sort of really good bits and truly, awful bits. I mean, how many characters did we see, for example, the 2 policemen that were basically the same
Copy-paste.
face?
Yeah.
The commandant and the inspector were
Very similar, yeah.
practically the same.
And in a show that's about duplication as well as...
It's a bit, and I did expect sort of, background characters just to have smileys drawn on them because it did seem that they couldn't be arsed animating some bits of it.
But when we watched Evil, I remember we thought they didn't do Victoria justice, and
Yeah.
they don't do Sam Briggs justice in this
Oh, God, no.
either. It's a lot more kind of round-faced and youthful looking in the episodes that exist than I think they capture in the animation. But I didn't really mind the others.
She's
Fred,
a very
obviously.
good character. I mean, it has to be
Yeah.
said. But the biggest elephant in the room is the disappearance of Ben and Polly for at least 4 episodes.
It's so weird, isn't it?
I can only basically think that they were only contracted for, say, 2 more or something, and so they weren't in those 4 episodes because they basically get found at the very last minute of episode 6. And
They
that
pop up
seems
just say
to be
goodbye,
it.
basically, don't they?
Yeah. And
It
it's
felt
a bit
quite
of-
forced, that scene, I thought. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just because you don't get the actors to see
Yeah,
emotions.
I feel it's a bit of a shame because they were really nice characters. I really quite liked Ben and Polly, and it just again, but Old Who was a bit like that with when companions left. It was never really made a fuss
an
of,
occasion,
as it were. Yeah.
Well, they didn't get the full dodo, but close.
No, well, jeez, I know, bloody hell. But interestingly, the next story is Evil of the Daleks, and as I said to Tim, it's set for at least 1 episode in the present, and you would have thought, well, maybe the Doctor and Jamie could sort of kip with Ben or Polly for the night on the next one. That's the way you would have done it now, probably. But anyway, that's just a minor annoyance. But
I mean, I agree with you. There are some impressive moments. I mean, I think in episode 1, that when they're leading this mysterious figure across the airport, that's quite. I think the music helps a lot there, and that
very much.
reveal or semi-reveal of it, and you don't see its face. You just see this breathing and this horrible scarred back of the head. That's a very effective moment.
Very much.
And yes, Pauline Collins is great. You can see easily why they wanted her to stay, and equally easily why she wanted to move on to bigger things.
Yeah. Apparently she said, look, I'll come back in like 40 years and play the Queen or something.
I do love Pauline Collins, I must admit.
I mean, it does have the most amazing cast, and it's such a shame that nobody has an interesting character to play. Everyone's a bit Basil Exposition in this. It's like Wanda Ventham and Colin Gordon. Has Colin Gordon ever played anything other than an official? Usually a bit shifty.
No, it is a bit of a shame, it has to be said. I mean, you've got so many good people that can do, great stuff, but you basically just underwrite everybody.
I quite like the ending as well, with the Doctor's being quite ruthless, and then he just casually switches to helping them out after he's done a bit of very McCoy-esque regime change. Sort of engineers the fall of the director, and then
is that the first time basically we see the Doctor helping the enemy? Because you don't normally. It's just the Doctor will,
I suppose there's the ambiguity about the Abbot of Amboise, and
because they're a bit like Ice Warrior-esque in that when you see them in the Peladon, they're not the villains and stuff, whereas previously they were. So that at least they had a sort of chance to make this race sort of a bit more nuanced. We're not all villains, and
but I mean, they sort of got a bit of at the end when at least the kind of deputy saw reason, or successfully was terrified out of his wits about imminent melting.
That as well.
And it looked for all the world like they were transmogrifying people by strapping a Wii remote to their arms. In fact, Max, my son, went off and he sent me a text today. I said, have you gone home? And he said, no, I've been kidnapped by aliens. And I said, did they miniaturize you yet? And then next time you visit, strap a Wii remote to your arm. But yeah, I'll make the cosplaying really easy at least.
Yeah. Oh, it was quite. I mean, as I say, I think you're absolutely right. 2 episodes, possibly 3 out, and we'd had a tight story, and it would have been a bit more entertaining. But it was stretched out too far. It's definitely not a 6-part.
It would have been quite a nice Steed of Mrs. Peel adventure, I think.
Absolutely. It would have been a perfect Avengers, actually. It really would, when you think about it.
I think there was a conscious sort of attempt to sort of channel some of that? Or?
Possibly. Yeah, looking over at the ITC.
Jazz, you had a glorious moment while we were watching it when you announced the fact that there have only been 3 scenes with airplane interiors in Doctor Who. And you went, okay, Faceless Ones, Time Flight, and what was the other classic series?
Bells of St. John, and then you went, what about the Capaldi ones? I went, there's only been 4.
And then Spyfall.
Plus he was in another one. Plus
you crossed this line, you die. Fanatical devotion to the Pope.
Oh, bloody hell, I just...
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's up to the usual quality of all our Doctor Who facts, that one. Shall we choose another story then?
Oh, go on then.
Any last thoughts on Faceless Ones? No. I do want to go and watch the 2 existing episodes again at some point.
Yeah, that would be quite nice. It's always, it's always better to see the actual episodes. But I'm glad they've at least reconstructed it in animation, because I suspect if I had to have watched this in bloody telesnaps,
careful what you say, we could get anything.
I would have lost the will to live with this particular one.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, when I give the word, press the button. The big one, yes. Maybe it works in conjunction with the others.
Basically, either end of the Doctor Who canon is going to be terrifying for you, isn't it? If
It's going, yeah, it is, and it's going to be the mutants one day. You know.
Well, hold that thought as well. Okay, here we go. I'm firing up the randomizer.
All right, well, let's try and find out. Now, what could it be?
Feels wrong
So,
without
It's Orphan 55.
You're fucking joking.
Nope.
You better be joking.
I'm not joking. We're going to watch Orphan 55, my friend.
Oh.
I can't say I'm looking forward to that either.
Thank
Maybe we
Christ,
could
it's
like
only
have a power cut 2
45
minutes before the end, and then.
Betty!
See,
God.
oh God. I just want to stab my ears out and my eyes. If this is the last thing my eyes see, that's just going to... Oh, God, no.
Well, I'm quite glad I won't be here for that one.
No, Gareth, you're our guest on the next episode.
No!
You got to email in your thoughts. Yeah.
Well,
like,
I'm predicting that I'm going to rewatch it and shift my opinion of it to the fact that I hate it even more.
well, I will be interested to see if I still have such a visceral distaste for
Oh,
the last few
probably
minutes.
you won't, because you bloody always wuss out and sort of try and think.
How dare I mellow my opinions after?
trying to do.
He could be in the room.
It's not the handicap it used to be in the olden days.
I'm really glad I'm going to Australia for a while. I think.
Yeah,
I might
you've got 2
emigrate.
days where I can still come around your house and give you a doing, so careful.
No.
All right, Orphan 55. You jinxed it by saying, it's fine. I was expecting tally snaps, actually. The lightning bolt missed you. Went to the other end. So, that is that. But, since I've put 10p in the meter for the randomizer, we may as well get our money's worth and fire it up a few more times and do some no complications.
Your report?
We found and destroyed the enemy.
Any complications?
No complications.
So basically the idea here is that we have things like the Ogron's delivery of no complications in Day of the Daleks that just bring us joy in that particular story, whether or not they're entirely glorious.
It's like you were saying about the Doctor Who and the Daleks. You know, there is one particular scene with the in the movie where the Dalek is and then the other one sort of very quick response.
Yeah, it was a bit no complications, and there was that little moment in the film where there's one stuck at the top of the stairs, which I quite liked.
That's quite good.
Sure, that was a little visual joke. When it's just come out of the river and you suddenly see them all revealed. There's one.
We forgot to mention handrails as well. Was there no budget for bloody handrails on that Dalek saucer? Because I tell you, I wouldn't have got into that Dalek and went up that narrow sort of passage. You know, because one false move and you're tumbling.
Yeah, I was quite scared for the cast inside the Daleks there, actually. But no, sci-fi famously doesn't do handrails. You know, I mean, Han Solo would have been absolutely fine.
There's a big cool thing about the destruction of Alderaan when those two are at the laser and it's a massive drop and no fucking handrail.
I thought you were going to say that Alderaan would have been fine if they'd had handrails.
Well, who knows?
All right. Okay, so here we go with some no complications, quick takes, and things that we like about it. Earthshock. The Cyberman in the door.
Oh,
That's
that is
brilliant.
impressive.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite bits in Doctor Who. The two Cybermen who are sort of having a chat outside the door when I think it's Tegan and the other one there, and you just see them waving their heads, and it's like, you know, they look like they're discussing the footballers.
It's totally the two stormtroopers in New Hope where they're going, did you see the TX-421 or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to mention Matthew Waterhouse mistiming his stumble later on. The ship, everyone's done the kind of Star Trek, the ship's out of control, and then everyone else stands still, and he goes stumbling across in the background.
I've never noticed that. I'll have to watch out for it. I liked how he's very tentative just before the keyboard blows up at the end.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
He even said, didn't he, that he was a bit worried because, you know, it was just about to go off.
Yeah, it would be a great way to finish your Doctor Who career was burning your fingers.
Yeah.
All right, let's do another. Yeah. Boomtown. I mean, just Annette Badland.
The Scooby-Doo chase is rather fun.
Yes.
When she's out, she's gone out the window, hasn't she? Yes.
Yeah.
But
What about you, Gareth?
Oh, it's a gem of a story. I only think about good things. I love Dinner and Bondage. How could I refuse?
Yeah, I've been watching Bergerac on BritBox, and she's like the secretary in the police station.
Yeah.
Annette Badland. You get that shiver down the spine moment when Blythe Drug happens. It's paid off, and that was so special that first season. It was all new to us.
Very much.
All right, we'll do another. The Robots of Death. Ugh, it's rubbish. I mean, it's just, I can't think of one single good moment in the whole story.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? I love the whole, the classic example of the inverse ratio between the size of the mouth and the size of the brain.
I like actually, in terms of slightly clunky moments, the comedy twang when Leela throws her knife. And it goes,
please do not throw hands at me. I love that moment as well.
When Poole comes to release the Doctor and Leela.
Oh, yes.
They've been strapped up in these... Actually, they look like they're fairly easy to escape, sort of straps.
Yeah.
And he releases the Doctor and then nearly forgets Leela until she sort of goes,
him, yeah. Actually, it's
is
not a crap
wonderful.
prop. They're molecularly bonded, Gareth.
Oh.
I really like her in most of her stories anyway, but there's a really good bit where she says he's not what he seems, about his body language, more like a hunter.
The explanation of the small box inside the big box. It's so many great bits.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then, of course, at the very end, Taran Capel's voice raising octaves with the helium.
A mouse in the wainscoting.
Yeah, wonderful.
All right, a
stuff.
couple more. Oh God, City of Death. We're getting all the clunkers this week. Are you going to complain now that why couldn't they come up when I clicked the randomizer?
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we take the stairs or take the lift, or shall we fly?
Let's not be ostentatious.
I mean, that was one of my earliest memories. Was the Scaroth reveal. It's always been special for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pun that was the most important punch in history. And the professor, what's his name?
The scientist.
Kerensky.
Yeah, he's sort of doing a bit of a Manuel performance as well. But I mean, he's great. I love it when him and the Doctor are talking.
John Cleese and Eleanor Braun.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Gareth, chip in, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
Again, so waiter, 3 glasses of water, make them large ones.
What a wonderful butler. He's so violent or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
and, yeah. And
one that, actually, I think I borrowed this from one of my Panto scripts, which is, how long has this place been here? Long enough. Really, that long?
And the Doctor talking to the Countess, well, you're a very beautiful woman, probably.
Yeah, that's the sort of Capaldi line in retrospect, isn't it?
Yeah.
One last one. Let's end on a high. What can top those two? Well, the Invasion of Time. Got a lot of Baker.
Well, there's the Sontaran soldier stumbling over the deck chairs.
Oh, yes.
Which is, and I really feel for the actor who's inside that costume at that moment.
It looks well padded. He'll be fine.
Yeah. Stumbles around. Invasion of Time is one I have a great affection for and enjoy, even though it is like it has that kind of end of the pier, end of the budget kind of sort of look to it.
Lovely. Well, that was no complications, and we will uncomplicate further in future.
I gladly accept your challenge.
It's challenge time, my friend. I have challenged Chaz to watch The Mutants, which he's never managed to sit through. Until now, I hope, because you told me earlier that you have taken some notes, so my expectations are sky high here. Fire away.
Well, I was particularly interested because they were talking about like race and everything, and the way it sort of mirrored our time. It's a particularly good piece, you sort of get a lot of sort of things about the way the government was acting. It's voiced by Noel Clarke, I believe.
Oh, this is that documentary on the extras.
Yeah. So there was that, and then what was the other one? Mutt Mad, Cast and Crew, Look Back, at the making of the story, which was a particularly good making of. And then, of course, dressing the Doctor, and discussing all the aspects of the clothing and the design. But there was a really fun little Blue Peter segment where Peter Purvis examines some of the monsters' plot, the opening bit, and the visual effects and stuff. And then, of course, with
was I presumably
Gary
referenced that he used to be on the programme as well?
Yeah, of course. And then we had a great trailer for the Ark. That looks fantastic. Can't wait to watch that. So yeah, it was incredibly entertaining.
Hang on, that's just the extras. What about the programme itself?
Well, basically, you just said the Mutants DVD. You didn't say which part of it, so...
I think the programme itself was kind of implied. Next time?
In my box.
We're going to do half a box of delights and then wrap up the show because we've been watching King of the Castle, but I haven't managed to get through it all yet. But Gareth and Chaz have both seen it before, but I thought since Gareth is fond of it, we would talk about the first 3 episodes, which are the 3 that I've seen. So no spoilers, damn you. Okay.
Can I just say one thing? Half a box of delights. Could you imagine if Milk Tray Man left half a box of Milk Tray?
Top layer.
That's like... that's a bit disappointing.
Did you have that rule of you're not allowed to start the second layer of a box of chocolates before they finish the first layer, including the ones?
Yeah, we had that rule as well, but definitely. I always stuck a couple out.
It's like opening your presents before Christmas, but hang on, you did that as well.
It's one of the markers of civilization, finishing the top layer.
Never mind penicillin and compassion.
I actually opened a selection box earlier. It was hidden under the bed, really, sort of put a lot of thought into it. And I managed to open it, and it was a bag of Tutti Frutti, and I basically sort of got half of it out just with a small opening in the bag, and then managed to seal the box back up.
Like a master criminal.
I was, yeah.
Oh well, heading to your spiritual home. Sorry, Australian listeners. Yeah. There was on Twitter the other day, somebody said, so I'm at border control in Australia, and the passport control guy says, so do you have a criminal record? And he goes, I didn't think that was necessary anymore.
That was great.
Oh my god, you just get in a room and search straight away.
Yeah.
But, anyway, King of the Castle, or King of some of the Castle. We'll finish it off later. But I've seen parts 1, 2, and 3. And here are my notes, and then we can dive in. So I didn't like part 1. I found it a bit off-putting with all the kind of gaudy stuff, and the bullying was quite uncomfortable, and even like knife crime being threatened. So it was all the real world and a bit kind of... a bit kind of difficult. I should say spoilers for King of the Castle, because I don't know if I said that at the top, but the spoilers for episodes 1 to 3 anyway. It's just to summarise the plot very slightly, at least as much of it as I know, there's a young man who is bullied at school and not especially happy, and he's kind of caught between 2 worlds. He's like been given a bursary or a grant to go to a posher school than his class background allows, so he's getting it from both sides that way. He's picked on at the school, and then he returns home to the tower block where he lives to find gangs lurking in the stairways and threatening him, and that was all the first episode. But then suddenly he's transported into a kind of magical version of the tower block, which is now a castle, and has to make this quest up through the various levels. And then part 2, at the end of part 1 that happens, and part 2 it kicks off, and I was gripped. I really loved it. He ends up in a mixture of the Land of Oz and Gormenghast.
Very much. Yeah.
And then the last one I've watched so far was part 3. So I don't know if it's going to settle into each part having a kind of major kind of theme or kind of other character, but this one was revolving around the actor playing his stepmother in the real world, who was a kind of, I don't know, sort of slightly bewitching kind of sorceress type who wanted him to stay with her in a kind of drugged tranquility. And so there was a little bit of a sort of an edge to that as well, in terms of him as a growing young man, and her as the not the evil stepmother at all, but just...
No, she was very much doting,
Yeah. But that's what I've seen so far. So you guys tell me more, or what you remember of it, where you found out about it. Gareth, you were talking about it being the best thing the writers wrote, that you thought.
Sometimes it feels that way. It's such the more you think about it, I think the more you get out of it. I think it's a very subtle script. I was thinking about this earlier today, knowing that we'd be talking about this, in that a good example is his parents. Now, these aren't sort of evil, abusive, or even particularly unpleasant people, but we get to see that they are causing trouble for our hero. His father's a bit sort of self-involved. He's a musician, and he's kind of, his mind's always, he's thinking about the night time when he'll be playing, and he doesn't really have anything. You know, his son comes to him and said, tries to tell him about he's being bullied at school and at home, and his dad's not much help for him. And similarly, his mum is perhaps a little bit overprotective, and that comes out in that third episode. So,
and she's the stepmother, right?
Yeah. That's it. And the fact that she's a stepmother, that brings in a slightly extra level that you kind of.
I don't think it's deliberate at all. It's just kind of slightly inherent in the fact she's in a kind of, she's drugging him and she's like stroking his face. There's a, it's very modern, cynical eyes that would read that as anything other than a kind of overprotective metaphor. Yeah. But I have modern cynical eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like you said about the first episode. It's very sort of gritty. Okay, you've got the bit in the cloisters in the school, but the urban setting with the tower and the gang
like Green
and everything. I mean, it's very sort of, it is quite threatening. The main bully, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he's actually went on to do quite a bit. But he always plays the same sort of character. He was in that Layer Cake with Daniel Craig, played one of the goons, and he was in EastEnders playing a similar type. But the whole sort of thing in the tower blocks, it sort of reminds me, I never lived in a tower block, but I knew a few people that did, and it seemed at first to be quite a sort of nice thing, but it was very oppressive because the lifts were always vandalised, and and people didn't feel particularly safe in them. Then moving into the fantasy setting is very much a staple of children's TV back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, you had things like, say, Into the Labyrinth, where they would be, just exploring a cave, and then suddenly they're in a fantastic magical place. When you get into that setting, it's fascinating because the sort of the characters that we've previously seen are obviously taking on new characters. Fulton Mackay is playing this sort of Frankenstein style, who is basically, in the real world, he's implying that the kid's there basically because of his voice, and that's the only reason he wants his voice. So it morphs into he's trying to steal his voice for his creation.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And it's like each level of the tower is a new task, a sort of little labours of Hercules in some ways, And I mean, I've obviously seen the whole thing, as have Gareth, and I really think it's one of those very underrated shows that doesn't get talked about much. The effects are obviously of the time, but some of them are very inventive.
I was very impressed. I thought the way they were layering visuals on top of each other was, skillfully done, and they're making a lot out of not much budget,
And it's lovely to see Talfin Thomas. I think he's particularly good in this, because he's this presence that's all the way through that you're never quite sure of,
Yeah, I quite like the technical side in that everything in the real world is on film.
Yeah.
All the stuff in the tower block, and then all what's going on inside his head is happening in the studio, which is, I think, makes a virtue out of a necessity. Really?
Yeah, I hadn't even spotted that, actually.
And you were saying about transporting it to the world. To me, it's fairly clear from early on that this is going on in his head. I don't think it's any less threatening for that.
Again, I've not really clicked that, and it's Kinvig all over again.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry, it's fine. I'm enjoying the irony that I didn't think that for Kinvig, and I've just sort of taken this in face value as well.
I suppose.
It's all right, carry on.
Well, I think it does become a little clearer well, I won't spoil it for you, but I think this basic idea, I mean, it's well before Buffy, long before Buffy was being praised for turning teenage angst into monsters, into the monster of the week.
Very much.
This is basically doing the same idea.
Dealing all his issues one by one, floor by floor. But...
It's an early precursor to Life on Mars.
And it's Bob Baker and Dave Martin wrote this, right?
Yeah.
So, any robot dogs at any point, or?
Well, we won't spoil it.
I don't think if he had a dog in the real world, then you could hope for it. No, I found the voice theft thing quite chilling, and then the third episode sort of dropped a little bit again for me, but the second one really grabbed me in a good way. And the Telford Thomas we know, of course, from Spearhead, is that right? And
Spearhead and Survivors and many other things.
Was he in Green Death? Was he one of them?
Oh, it was Welsh, so he very probably was. I think he's a really good performer. I kind of like the fact that you don't know if he's friend or foe.
Yeah, it's a nicely ambiguous kind of character, whilst in the real world he's this just splendidly shifty, unreliable guy.
I'm not sure, you would probably know this, Gareth. His father, is he in now what am I thinking?
The musician.
History Man?
I know why you've said History. He could be. I must admit, I haven't seen the History Man.
I'm not sure.
He does have that kind of look to it.
He does, doesn't he?
He does have a kind of Anthony Sher thing going on, but it's not Anthony Sher.
If he was Irish, I'd say he was Joey out of The Commitments.
He also appears in Sky, the other.
Right.
He plays a sort of pagan cultist character.
He's got a fantastic face, it's very sort of expressive. It does feel sort of like you've obviously got an allegory for what's going on in the real world, but I think it goes a bit further than just what the estate. I'm talking into slight politics of the real world and all that as well.
They're looking forward to watching.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. I must admit.
Well, shall I wait till you're back? I've waited this long. It's a slightly stunted discussion, of course, because I can't cover the whole thing without spoilers for me. Maybe I should just go off and let you two talk about it, and then you can edit it.
Like most of the podcast listeners.
No, I'll tell you what, Gareth. I will send you an email when I've finished it, and you could email back a few quick thoughts if you get a moment. Which chances are you will have finished all the things that are eating your time up by then, because it's going to be a while.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the first 3 episodes?
The music, it's got a quite interesting theme to it. You're going to hear it a lot.
The music.
I can't stop singing it when I'm watching for some reason. Yeah, it does. And you were saying about Gormenghast, it has got a feel to it of the structure and the political structure of the castle, as it were.
Magical castle where there's the rules are completely opaque.
Obviously, the elite at the top and the servile scum at the bottom, as it were.
No, it's a kid's version of Gormenghast.
But doesn't it just sort of show you really how imaginative children's TV was back in the 70s and 80s, Because, I'm not criticising what they get now. They get some great stuff, but there was a lot more sort of out there thinking, You get stuff like this, or The Changes, or, Into the Labyrinth, Sky, all these programmes that are... they've got a slight edge to them, a bit more edgy than is comfortable, but they're wonderful viewing for kids. I've got massive memories of things like Children of the Stones and all that. Nostalgia's a great tool, and obviously that's why Network make a bloody fortune. But but I sort of, I do feel a bit sorry sometimes for kids not being able to experience some of that.
I think you could write a dissertation on the political metaphor in Pingu.
I was just going to add in one thing about 70s, especially 70s kids TV, is that, also that the kids look like kids. There's well, that whole 70s thing, you could be sort of average looking, and there was a place for you in TV drama.
Especially in Britain, I guess. Yeah.
Whereas now, look, I mean, there's very well written stuff, but there's that sense that everyone's just a bit buffed and good looking. Even the kids are like, they look like they all go to the gym before they start work.
Exactly. I mean, you look at, as I say, the Bullies, for example, or things like, say, Stig of the Dump, or these programs, and the kids just looked normal. I am a product of my time. I I get entertained by seeing things like that, but I can still appreciate other things.
It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
9 times out of 10.
Oh, well, I think we should wrap up there. Thank you both very much. Gareth, always a pleasure. And Very British Features is your podcast.
That is.
What's the topic of the other episode that you've recorded already?
It's been Channel 4's The Aliens.
I think that's actually on BritBox now. I'm sure I saw it the other day.
It's definitely on all 4. And it was very interesting. Having missed it in 2014, it was very interesting to get together with Rebecca Ray and Danny Ray to have a talk through it.
Rebecca and Danny from the Tripods cast, amongst other things.
From the fabulous Tripods cast, which I can fully recommend.
Yeah, I've been enjoying that as well. Like with your podcast, I'm held back a little by wanting to watch the things you're talking about first, so I haven't listened to every episode, partly because I haven't quite felt ready to watch Threads emotionally. But the things I've seen, like Star Cops and so on, it's been very enjoyable.
I particularly like your podcast because, as I say, you don't always pick the sort of, the stuff that's been discussed ad infinitum, so it's great to do the Dominic Hyde one, and
I'd been meaning to watch that for years,
and stuff like that. So it's I look forward to more. Much.
Thank you very much. I hope to have you on. I would love to have you on as guests again.
Convict too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that.
I think it's time to do Come Back, Mrs. Noah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm in the dark.
Oh, God. Oh, that's beautiful. We can watch Tim suffer all over again.
Another sci-fi sitcom with Molly Sugden in space.
Molly Sugden in space. Oh, God. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in touch, or if you're stuck in an imaginary castle, we can be reached at randomizerpodcast@gmail.com. You can leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/randomizer, or follow us on Twitter at randomizerpod. And in all cases,
that's randomizer with an S, not a Z.
You did that really well, Chaz, this time. Well done.
Was this an interview? Am I getting kicked out of the band?
Well, you're out of the country for a while. It's Bianca Jagger in Children of the Stones.
Bianca Jagger? I don't.
You're going to get that joke in about half an hour, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, probably.
Sorry.
There you go. The penny drops. Oh, God. Penny in the air. Penny still in the air. Gosh, the gravity's low this week.